Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 84 of B-Road Ballers, the review series for Gran Turismo's Hot Hatch selection. And this particular episode is a notable one because this is the final incarnation of the Mini lineup which we're going to be reviewing, unless of course they add more cars in the future. And this particular model is the 2007 shape Mini. It's a car which could be better, you could say, but as is, it kind of falls into a little bit of a no man's land between the first generation new Minis and the newer 2011 Cooper S, which I talk about quite a bit on the channel. It's a fantastic hot hatch, one of the best front wheel drive cars in the game, I would say. This one, on the other hand, well, it's not necessarily as strong. In fact, it's categorically not as strong in a few ways. The most notable way that this Mini takes a slight hit over some of the others is that it is heavy. It's actually the heaviest of all of the Cooper and Cooper S models at 1,018 kilos. That's just over a tonne. That's not that great, especially given that all of the others tend to hover between 900 and 950 or so. So that means that this car is a good 50 or 60 kilos, sometimes even more, over the other models. That's the equivalent of carrying a small amount of ballast around all the time. And although it doesn't ruin the car in any particular way, you can to some degree feel the extra weight, particularly in the handling. Now, as far as specs, in terms of power, torque, that kind of thing, it's not bad. It's got a 1.6 turbo engine, it produces 338 horsepower, 287 foot-pounds of torque, and puts out 332 horsepower per tonne, despite the fact that it does weigh slightly more. That's not bad at all. That's actually not much less horsepower per tonne than some of the other Minis. They tend to all hover around the mid 300 region, around 330 to 360-ish. So it doesn't really trail too far behind, given the fact that it is heavier, and the fully tuned PP level is actually exactly 500, which could even be potentially useful given that the car is running, in effect, at its best at that PP level. The price is a fraction under 30 grand, which is okay, but the better version isn't much more. It's only a few hundred credits more if you think about it. And so the question is, does the car really serve a purpose, or is it just an option for Mini fans? Well, it's kind of a simple review on this occasion, because although it is the last of the Minis, it's a fairly simple one to go through, because yes, it's not an essential purchase, and it's not as good as some of the other Minis. It's not a bad car, not by any means. The handling is actually pretty good, as you can see on this city circuit. Despite the fact that it does weigh more, it can still handle itself on tight corners pretty well. And although it's not as adept at coping with its power and especially torque as the newer model, you can see of course in this video you do get a little bit of torque steer, a little bit of a tendency to spin up one or both of those front tyres, which isn't too surprising. It's not the best Mini in the game, so it's not going to perform the best. I would say overall this is a car which isn't really required for anyone, to be honest. You'd have to be such a huge fan of Mini to really justify needing this car, because apart from that, I really don't see a reason why you'd need to buy it. It doesn't really do anything or offer anything that any of the other Minis don't anyway. The fact that it is heavier and you can't do anything about that means that even for PP specific racing, it's kind of always at a disadvantage, because to get the other cars lower you just reduce the power and their weight is already low, whereas with this car you can't alter that. So although yes, you may be allowed to have more power for its respective PP level, the weight is also much higher, and as many of you guys will know, higher weight is never a good trade-off, especially when you're in ultralight hatchback territory. So overall, it's a car which isn't bad, certainly not, but it's a little bit mediocre compared to the newer version in terms of performance, looks and handling, I would say, and it's just not a car which needs to be purchased. So by all means try it out if you want to, but the purpose and point of this car is so niched that it's almost non-existent. It's not a bad car, that's why it's not featured in the Boat series, but at the same time it's about as close to that as you could get while still not being a bad car. So kind of pointless. So it's a fairly simple review overall. I can't really go into more details about the car because that's all we've got to work with. But that's it for this particular review, and as I said, we've now polished off all of the mini models. So I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.